Now, turning to the issue of the 70 days, unlike Pearl Harbor, which was the analogy that the Surgeon General advanced, that was a sneak attack, and we didn't have a modern intelligence community. Today, we have a sprawling intelligence apparatus, an intelligence community that has been warning about pandemics going all the way back to the mid-2000s. In fact, in a 2008 unclassified intelligence assessment, it predicted a respiratory SARS-like infection emanating from China, spreading around the world, killing tens of thousands, potentially millions, including hundreds of thousands, maybe millions in the United States. And so when President Bush had that assessment, he warned about pandemics. When President Obama saw that assessment, he, of course, created the position of the Ebola czar during that crisis. President Obama established a pandemic response office within the National Security Council, an office that President Trump disbanded, and during his denials of the severity of this crisis, we lost critical time, we lost critical momentum.
Oh, my friend, it's been way too long since you've been here. You just gave me enough for a whole hour. Let me try to unpack everything you just took all of us through. One, why can't Donald Trump do what you did at the beginning? Just say our hearts go out to everyone with a family member who succumbed to this or who's now in ICU fighting this.
And, Nicole, I think it takes sort of the forthrightness, the earnestness, and the optimism and the truthfulness of an address like we saw over the weekend from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. And basically what she did in 4 minutes is she leveled with the people of the UK, all of its subjects, and also, frankly, the whole world who watched that address. And she also gave them reason to hope because she explained the dedication and the ingenuity and the innovation and the bravery of our first responders and our healthcare workers. But she made clear that unless the people of Britain and the people of the world stayed home, followed the rules, and took this with the requisite severity that it requires, seriousness that it requires, that we're not going to be able to battle this crisis. And I think that's the thing that's really wanting from the White House. I think the president wants to have it both ways. He wants to warn that this is serious, but he wants to make everyone feel better and say, it's okay, it's going away, there's nothing to worry about, the economy is going to come roaring back. And the reality is that there is no V-shaped recovery unless the medical aspect of this crisis gets under control.
Jeremy Bosch, what do you, I guess I'm asking you to put your intel hat on now, but what do you attribute the president's inability to see us as a part of this global community fighting the pandemic? I mean, he ignored intelligence that came in as early as January based on that new Washington Post report. It was abundantly clear that what was happening in China could and would happen here if we didn't act quickly. And I've been inside an intelligence failure that was examined by bipartisan commissions. I would bet my last donut that this will be investigated by bipartisan commissions for years and years and years to come. But what is it that you could sort of put your finger on that makes Donald Trump immune to science, immune to facts, even in the moment this pandemic is ripping through his country, killing his citizens? He's in a TV fight with Anthony Fauci about a malaria drug.
And how tragically ironic, Nicole, that you have to ask that question just hours, days after the president fired the Inspector General, the key watchdog of the U.S. intelligence community. And the reason that Inspector General was fired was because he allowed a member of the intelligence community, a whistleblower, to speak the truth. And, engraved on the lobby wall of the CIA in the original headquarters building at Langley is the quote from the New Testament: "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And that is the article of faith of the intelligence professional, of the intelligence officer, that if you speak the truth and base your analysis on facts, good policy can follow. But of course, if you're just interested in pursuing your own agenda and the facts be damned, you're going to get a bad outcome. And unfortunately, in our history, when we have wavered from the intelligence community's best judgment, their expertise, their analytical assessments, we have pursued bad policies that have resulted in severely negative consequences for the United States. And I think this really emanated, Nicole, from the beginning of the president's tenure in office, when the intelligence communities came to him and said, look, this is an uncomfortable reality, but Russia interfered on your behalf. We've got the intelligence that says so. And from that moment on, President Trump was determined to undermine the U.S. intelligence community.
So when you read that quote that's on the wall of the CIA, I get a lump in my throat, both knowing a lot of former intelligence folks who were the first people in my world to tell me what was coming our way based on what they understood and were hearing from their contacts and sources. But second, because of what Donald Trump does to people who tell the truth. I mean, just in the last, 72 hours, he's fired Michael Atkinson, you just referenced, the Inspector General, the watchdog over the entire intelligence community, who simply corroborated and found credible a whistleblower report that was ultimately corroborated by John Bolton, Fiona Hill, Bill Taylor, more than a dozen national security officials. But he also fired the captain of an aircraft carrier who not only told the truth, but did so to protect his sailors. I mean, we're not going in that direction of the quote you just read us.
That's right, Nicole. And the skipper, the captain of the USS Teddy Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier, had an incredibly important responsibility as leader of that carrier strike group, leader of that ship. He was responsible for the well-being of his sailors and probably a lot of Marines also on board that massive warship. And as you saw just there in the video, when he disembarked the ship, his team, his sailors, his Marines on board that ship were chanting his name because they appreciated the fact that he was saying, I need my people protected. And that's the first duty of a person in battle, a leader in battle, a naval officer, is to protect people under his or her command. And he did so by, after many attempts apparently, by writing a letter that ultimately found its way to the media. But he should have been heard long before that. And for them to relieve him of his command was a clear signal, which is don't speak out. Don't speak out in the government if coronavirus, if COVID-19 is attacking your people. We don't want that bad news out there, certainly not in that way. And so I think it was a very disappointing, incredibly disheartening, and I think ultimately dangerous decision by our government to relieve him. An aircraft carrier is a pillar of our military readiness. At any one time, we only have maybe 3 or 4 at sea. And so it's critical that those assets be protected.
And he is now in quarantine. He tested positive for coronavirus himself. We wish him well. Jeremy Bash, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see your face, my friend.